So, growing up, people often told me, Alex, you're young. You need to take advantage of that. You need to make sure you do things while you're young. Because when you're young, you're able to take bruises or take pain and you'll feel fine the very next day. You'll be fine. You'll wake up feeling okay. You're normal, right? Whereas if you're a little older, the next day it feels like a truck hit you, right? Even though it's just a little bruise. And I'll be honest with you, church family, whenever people told me this, I felt a little frustrated. I felt frustrated not in the sense of what they were telling me to do was wrong or right, but I felt frustrated because oftentimes the same people that were telling me to take advantage of my youth often overlook the disadvantages that come with being young, or that being a young person. So I want to give you all some examples. If I can get, I think it is my third slide, my second or third slide. I want to show you some examples of some things that some older people might tell us as young people to do. And then I'm going to show you some of the excuses that we as young people might give to some of you. If I can get the next slide. So here's a couple of examples. Maybe you'll find these funny, maybe not. Go travel. Well, I'm broke. Where am I going to get the money for that? I can't afford to buy a plane ticket and fly across the world and book a hotel. I have $5 in my pocket, that's all I have. But where am I going to get the money for that? Meet people. Man, being social is kind of hard now, COVID didn't really help things. And I'll be honest with you, part of the way I am social with my friends is I'll send them an Instagram reel or a meme, and that's it. I'll call it a day. That's as social as I want to get with some people sometimes. Go on dates. Well, man, I've been heartbroken before, and I'm scared to talk to women. I'm scared to talk to men. I don't want to go through dating, and heck, even online dating is kind of hard now. For those of you who don't know, even in online dating sites, AI is being used. So it's not a person that's a catfish that's talking to you behind that. It's actually a robot. So, man, even dating isn't working out well for us now. And again, it's things like this, or things like go hike a mountain, go run a marathon, go and make connections. We as young people have our limitations when it comes to those things. And it can often feel like the advantage that we have of being young or living in our youthful years can feel like a disadvantage sometimes. Again, that's not an excuse for us to not try to do some of these things that I mentioned. If we're able to, yes, go travel. If we're able to, yes, go meet people. If you're able to, yes, go meet someone. Go hike that mountain. Go run that marathon. Go do those things because you have the time and energy for it. However, although the world, and even to a certain extent, our expectations make us feel like we're disadvantaged as young people, the Bible holds many spiritual advantages for young people. And I do want to say this to all the young people sitting here in this congregation today. These years of your life, in these years of your life, it has never been easier to accept and live out the gospel than ever before. And I'll explain why. Being young gives you an open mind. Being young allows you to take in new ideas and learn things faster and understand these concepts of the Bible. And I want to say this to all of you. If you're struggling to allow the gospel to come into your heart, know that it's never been easier for you to do so. There are 3 advantages explained in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verses 8 to 10, that I want to show to all of you. And on the surface, it might not seem like it or look like it, but as you look deeper into the text, you'll notice some interesting things from this passage specifically. These are some advantages that I think some of our older members wish that they heard about when they were a little younger as well. I want to invite all of you to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 11. We're going to go to verse 8, and I want to read verses 8 to 10. Ecclesiastes 11, verses 8 to 10. This is what the Word of God says. However many years a man may live, let him enjoy them all. But let him or her remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Everything to come is meaningless. Be happy, young man or young woman, while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see. But know that for all these things, God will bring you to judgment. So then, banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. Again, upon reading this text, on the surface, it sounds nice and not so nice. There's some nice things said in there, and there's some okay things, things that might make us feel a little bit bad. I mean, the word meaningless is in this text, and we all know what meaningless means, right? But in these verses, King Solomon, who is the author of the book of Ecclesiastes, and who is looking back in his life, points out certain things, certain advantages that young people have. Advantages that us as young people need to take advantage of, because they'll never come back to us again. So here's the first advantage that I have for you. If I can get the next slide, please. Next slide after that. The first advantage that you as a young person have is time. Time is on your side. Oftentimes, something that we as older people struggle with a little bit is a very famous word. It's called regret. And you'll often hear it being said in this manner. And let me show you this as an example. Oh, if only I could, or man, I wish I could, or oh, if only I could, or I wish I could go back to. You've heard people, maybe a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, a pastor, someone older, talk about regret in that tone and in that manner of voice. Regret is a very real thing. In fact, there's actually a term in psychology that actually kind of explains a sort of lifestyle when it comes to regret. If I can get the next slide, please. Vicarious living is the act of experiencing life through the actions, achievements, and activities of others, rather than through one's own actions. People often live vicariously through others, not out of envy, but out of personal missed opportunity when they were young. You've often heard someone say, I'm living my life through you because I wasn't able to do those things when I was young. In other words, your achievements are my achievements. Your goals are my goals. Your losses are my losses. And your wins are my wins. And people often do this because when they were young, circumstances and time couldn't allow them to be able to live these experiences and opportunities that some of you have and some of you have been afforded to. And so time is a gift from God, a gift that we will never get back. At this very moment, you have wasted some time, whether you've wasted it in a productive way or you've wasted it in a way that is wasteful. You've often heard the phrase, time is money. And that's never been more true the older you get. Time is so valuable, it's so short, that the older you get, the faster the years go by, the faster everything goes by. One event happens, and then all of a sudden you look back and you say, man, it's the end of the week already? I can't believe it. And so, going back to what I mentioned before, being young, with this open mind that you have, and the time that you are afforded, there has never been a most incredible opportunity to let the gospel come into your heart. And you see, oftentimes, when we get older, we tend to get a little bit more stubborn. It's harder for us to accept new ideas or adapt new habits into our lives. You've heard the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's really difficult for us to alter the way in which we were raised and go a different direction in our lives, especially the older we get. But when you're young, you are being molded by people or experiences or school or work or those that influence you or the people around you. Everything is molding you to become someone when you get a little older, when you become an adult, when you go out into the workforce. For most of you as young people, your life is centered around school. Maybe some of you it's work. Maybe some of you it's extracurricular activity. But you don't have the responsibility of being an adult yet. You have the luxury of being with your parents. You have the luxury of not paying bills. You have the luxury of not having kids, of not dealing with some of the headaches that us as adults have to deal with. Yes, amen. A couple months ago, I turned 25, and my friend on my birthday called me, and my friend, he likes to joke around with me. And he said, hey, Alex, guess what? I was like, what? You're 25 now, right? Yeah, I am. Well, you know what that means, right? No. That means you're only 5 years away from turning 30. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, you know what? You're actually another 15 years away from turning 40. You're not making my birthday feel any better, man. Actually, it gets better. You're another 25 from turning 50. You were my birthday, man. Come on. I hung up the phone on him in a joking manner. But what my friend said was true. Some of you here have told me, hey, you don't look or act 25, or you look really young for your age. But church family, I'm 25. I am only 5 years away from turning 30. And when I look back at my life, I was a completely different person today than I was 10 years ago. And that's life. Life goes by, and the next thing you know, you go from turning 15 to 25. So those years of your youth are so brief and so short that there's a lot of opportunity there. A lot of opportunity for you to develop healthy spiritual habits, to start and set a good foundation for a great prayer life, for a great devotional life, to have these habits in your life. And so when you get older and you have these habits already down, your future self will thank you later. You don't have that struggle of having to learn new habits and having to reset your life and having to re-educate yourself. In looking at the text, in verse 8, King Solomon, who is the author, looks back in his life. And this is what he says. Verse 8 says, however many years a man may live, let him or her enjoy them all. So he's talking about time here. However many years a man may live, enjoy them. Enjoy the years of your youth. Let your heart give you joy. And remember these years. But also remember these years, because days of darkness will follow on later on. The older you get, the more difficult life becomes. Those days of darkness are going to come. They come in different ways, but they'll come. They'll be there. So, in these years that you guys have of being young, take advantage of that. Learn to develop these healthy habits. Don't let your high school years, your collegiate years slip away and you haven't done anything for God, or you haven't done anything to progress in the way that you grow as a person, through Jesus Christ, of course. That is the first advantage, young people, that you have. The second advantage that you have, if I can get the next slide, please. The second advantage that you guys have as young people, you have a lot of decisions and choices to make. I'll be the first to say, at this point in my life, I didn't think that I would have to make as many important decisions as I thought I would. I thought they would come a little bit later, maybe when I was in my 30s or in my 40s. But man, was I wrong. You see, high school and collegiate kids, for most of you in your lives, you can either choose to go to school, you can choose to go to work, you can choose to live with your parents or move out. Maybe not in this economy anymore, right? Maybe some of you are forced to live with your parents. You can choose to get married. You can choose to be single. You can choose what career field you want to go into. You can choose how you react to certain situations. You can choose to listen to your family or not. You can choose to be a Christian or not. And here's the catch. Yes, you have all these important decisions to make. Yes, you have to make them at some point. There's no running away from them. But have some of you made those decisions yet? Probably not. Some of you haven't been there yet. It's coming, but you haven't been there yet. In this period of your life, whatever decision you make will, at some points, will drastically alter your life, for better or for worse. And guess what? You are that person making that decision. Your parents are making that decision for you. I certainly am not. Your teachers aren't. Your friends aren't. Although some of you might listen to what people say and that might influence your decision. But at the end of the day, it's on you. Look at what verse 9 says, going back to the text. Be happy, young man, young woman, while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart, and whatever your eyes see. Sounds nice, right? Follow the ways of your heart, and whatever your eyes see. Sounds pretty good. But here's the catch. But know that for all these things, God will bring you to judgment. Whatever choice you make, there will be consequences that comes with those choices. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. And we as young people often choose the bad consequences because they're more appealing. You know, the good stuff is harder to choose because it's hard. That's not the easy path. I can't tell you how many of my friends who are stuck in life, friends my age and maybe a little younger, who are stuck in life are stuck in their position because of their choices. It's their decision. No one told them to do what they did. And what King Solomon is telling us here is that, yeah, you can follow the ways of your heart, and heck, you can listen to yourself if you want to, you can listen to your friends or whoever, but know that God will hold you accountable for those decisions. God will remember those decisions. So what's the best piece of advice to give you for this? The best piece of advice I can give to each and every one of you today is to not make a decision without God having a say in it. make sure God has a say in the things that you do. Make sure God knows what you're going to do before you do it. Because we as young people act on impulse. And sometimes older people do it as well, maybe not as often. But we make decisions based on how we feel, or based on what looks good or feels right. And that leads us into trouble. But God knows what decision He wants to make for us. The question that you need to know or ask is, can I trust Him enough to make that decision for me? So we covered two advantages already. The first is time. You have time on your side. Although it's short, you have time. The second is you have to make a lot of decisions and choices. They'll come. Some of you are already making them. Well, you have to make them. And here's the third advantage that you have. Can I have the next slide, please? The third advantage that a young person has that's spiritual is your purity. Let me explain this one a little bit more. Matthew 5:8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." The concept of purity is mentioned throughout the Bible. And purity actually has a direct correlation to infancy or young years. And this goes all the way up to becoming an adult, right? Being young doesn't necessarily mean we know everything. In fact, if I can get the next slide, there's a sense of naivety when it comes to being young, right? We don't know everything. I like this cartoon that I found. It says, this guy is talking to his friend. He says, "I bought an app that tests your gullibility for only $500. That's pretty gullible if you ask me. But this is how we as young people are. We're gullible. We believe what people tell us, and we often fall for it. I know I have. I've been there before. When I first came to Napa at the end of 2023, I'm still a rookie pastor, by the way. I consider this my first job. And when I came here, I'll be honest with all of you, I had no idea what was going on. I was a kid plucked fresh out of the line of PUC graduates, and then I was thrown into a church that had a lot of history, a tradition, a lot of notoriety, and I was lost. I was like, man, who can I talk to? Who can I trust? Who's important? Who's not? Where are the youth? What am I doing here? And along that line, I made decisions that, I had to learn the hard way. Not just as a young pastor, but as a young man in general. And so the idea or concept of being naive is in line with being young. And in a way, your purity kind of makes you a little bit naive to things, right? We're not exposed to everything that's bad, or we don't see or look ahead to what is bad. We just trust and do it. But look at what King Solomon says in the text. Rereading verse 10, it says, "So then banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, because youth and vigor are meaningless. Get rid of what is impure from you. Separate yourself from that. Walk away from what is impure. Walk away from what leads you to sin. Walk away from the things that are not good for you. Cast it off your body. Get rid of it. Take it off like it's clothes. Do something about it. Banish it." Something interesting here in this passage, if I can get the next slide. The last word in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 is the word meaningless, in which, in translated to the Hebrew, is the word hevel. Now, throughout the entire book of Ecclesiastes, the word hevel means what it is. It's meaningless, right? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter, right? Who cares? But in this context, the word hevel actually means brief or fleeting. There's a completely different meaning. So at the end of verse 11, at the end of verse 10, what King Solomon is actually saying is that youth and vigor are not meaningless. Youth and vigor are just fast. It goes by quick. And King Solomon, as I mentioned before, and I explained my frustrations with how older people would tell me how to live my life when I was young, well, King Solomon is the old guy here telling us how to live our lives when we're young. He's that old guy telling us that in this passage. And he's right. That's a principle that we live with. It's the process of life. Let me explain to you why purity is very important. Go to the book of Titus, chapter 1, verse 15. The book of Titus, chapter 1, verse 15. This is what the text says. To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are corrupted and do not believe nothing is pure, in fact, both their minds and consciences are corrupted. To the pure, all things are pure. To the impure, all things are corrupted. When you are growing up and you hear or see or taste something you're not supposed to, what happens? A sense of guilt comes on your body, right? You know that what you did was wrong. Your conscience is talking to you and it's saying, yeah, that wasn't right. That doesn't feel right. I think the best example of this principle is what happens to a child when they do something wrong. We start crying because they know that what they did went against the principle of what their parents told them. They know that what they did was wrong. They know that what they did doesn't feel right. And so, what am I trying to say with this? Keeping your purity is something so valuable in today's world that it's pretty rare. It's rare to find young people who abuse their purity, who abuse their conscience, who know what the difference is between what is right and what is wrong. And to be honest with you, church family, we are living in a world that is saying what is wrong is right and what is right is wrong. It's confused. I have a quote for you, if I can get the next slide. This is from, next slide, please. This is from Ellen White's book, Mind, Character, and Personality. It says, one wrong step changes a life. The removal of one safeguard from the conscience, the failure to do the very thing that the Lord has marked out, one step in the path of wrong principle leads to an entire change of life and action. One wrong step leads to an entire change of life and action. Just one step. Not two, not three, just one. However, look at what she says. We are safe only in following where Christ leads the way. The path will grow clearer, brighter and brighter until the perfect day. Your purity is crucial in these years. Guard your heart. Guard your mind. Guard what you know is right. Guard the principles that you have been taught, the principles of God, and keep them in your heart. Again, King Solomon mentions to banish anxiety from your heart and cast things off your body, the bad things. Many of you know that some of you have heard my story before that. I struggled with pornography when I was in high school and in my early years of college. And throughout that experience, my conscience became numb to what was wrong and what was right. All of a sudden, that sense of guilt in which you feel when you know you do something wrong doesn't feel that bad anymore. It's like you're numb. And it takes years to unnumb that, to reverse that. And that's the danger that if you don't walk along that fine line of what is good and what is right, you will be numb to what is right and what is wrong. And so all these advantages, time, decisions and choices, and your purity, set the stage for one of the most iconic verses in the Bible. Go back with me to Ecclesiastes. It's going to be Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1. It says, "Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them." Remember the Lord in the days of your youth. Remember the Lord when you make decisions. Remember the Lord when you have time. Remember the Lord when you need to keep your purity. And why do we need to remember the Lord? The text answers that for us. Before the days of trouble come, before you get older and life gets harder, and the years approach when you say, I find no pleasure in them. No pleasure in what? No pleasure in doing things without letting God have a say in them. Anything that you guys do, young people, make sure God has a say in it. Don't live your life with regret in not allowing God to make decisions for you in the time that you have and in your state of mind. Do not go down that path. Because there's a lot of youth that have gone down that path, and you know what? Those youth are not here in church with us today. They're not sitting here with you today. Some of those youth are my friends. Remember God in the good times and in the bad times. Remember God when you celebrate and when you cry. Remember God when you get accepted to your dream school or you get that promotion in your dream job. Remember God when you win and when you lose. Remember God when you want to marry someone. Remember God when you want to buy your first house. I know I mentioned 3 advantages that youth and young adults have, and even children. But you want to know what the greatest advantage that you have? Can I get the next slide? See, the greatest advantage that you, young man, young woman, that you have is that you know who God is in these years of your life. Most people don't get to know the gospel until they're a lot older. Some people don't even know the gospel until they're on their deathbed. But not you. You know who Jesus is. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to remember God? Or are you going to push him to the side and say, man, you know what, God, let me live my life. I don't want you in my life. But you have the privilege of knowing him. You know who he is. There's so many people in the world that don't know who he is. There's people that know who he is and rejected him. That's why they're not sitting here with us today. But you know who he is. Children, youth, young adults, older adults, spiritual leaders. My question to all of you today, will you remember God? And will you remember him today?